Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Interesting Ideas on Christmas Eve. You're obviously very busy today, and I won't take too much of your time, but I happened to come across something just kind of by accident, and it made me very sad. At the same time, I was fascinated by the story that I found. And so, if you'll give me just a few minutes, I'd like to share it with you. Again, I was going back to my friend Richard Rohr and his meditation from yesterday, and it was called Mary's Wholehearted Call. Mary's Wholehearted Call. And it was an excerpt from a woman named Rachel Held Evans. Rachel Held Evans. And here was the tragedy. 1981 to 2019. You can figure that out. A wonderful woman, bright, beautiful, mother of children, 1981 to 2019. Well, I'll finish the story, and then we'll just share her words and maybe a comment or two, and we'll be done. And I think you'll find something useful, practical, inspirational, maybe a little bit tearful on this Christmas Eve. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas, and it begins right now. The story, as far as I can get it, is that this very talented young woman who had written 3 or 4 books and was well respected just because a lot of people read her good stuff, all of a sudden there was an infection, and before they knew it, she was in a coma condition, and before they could do anything more about it, they tried everything they could, but with the results and the cause still a bit unknown, she passed away, and that was in 2019. And here are her words from that particular exposition on Mary. Perhaps it is because I am neck deep in a season of motherhood and caretaking that I am more aware than ever of the startling and profound reality that I am a Christian not because of anything I've done, but because a teenage girl living in occupied Palestine at one of the most dangerous moments in history said yes. She said yes to God. Yes to a wholehearted call she could not possibly understand. Yes to vulnerability in the face of societal judgment. Yes to a vision for herself and her little boy of a mission that would bring down rulers and lift up the humble, that would turn away the rich and fill the hungry with good things, that would scatter the proud and gather the lowly. See the story in Luke 1:51 through 53. Yes to a life that came with no guarantee of her safety or even of her sons. She goes on to say, I know that Christians are Easter people. We are supposed to favor the story of the resurrection, which reminds us that death is never the end of God's story. Yet I have never found that story even half as compelling as the story of incarnation. And then Pastor Rohr says, Evans honors the unique role that Mary and women everywhere play in humanity's physical incarnation. It is nearly impossible to believe. God, shrinking down to the size of a zygote, implanted in the soft lining of a woman's womb. God growing fingers and toes. God kicking and hiccuping in utero, God inching down the birth canal and entering this world covered in blood, perhaps into the steady, waiting arms of a midwife. God crying out in hunger, God reaching for his mother's breasts, God totally relaxed, eyes closed, his chubby little arms raised over his head in a posture of complete trust. God resting in his mother's lap. God trusted God's very self, totally and completely and in full bodily form, to the care of a woman. God needed women for survival. Before Jesus fed us with the bread and the wine, the body and the blood, Jesus himself needed to be fed by a woman. He needed a woman to say, "This is my body given for you." To understand Mary's humanity and her central role in Jesus' story is to remind ourselves of the true miracle of the Incarnation. And that is the core of the Christian conviction that God is with us, plain old ordinary us. God is with us in our fears and in our pain, in our morning sickness and in our ear infections, in our refugee crisis and in our endurance of empire, in smelly barns and unimpressive backwater towns, in the labor pains of a new mother, and in the cries of a tiny infant. In all these things, God is indeed with us, and God is for us. Simply say amen to that. I would add only one thing. God is not only with us and for us, God is now one of us. As I came to the idea that we should think of Jesus as the master entrepreneur, it simply is, that's what he was. And so not only was he among us and with us, he was actually one of us. And so whatever it is we are, it could very well be that he is too. Yes, Emmanuel, God is with us. Good news. God is for us. Great news. And God is one of us. Incredible news. Comfort and joy, indeed. But it leaves us at choice. And that means every time we celebrate Christmas, it's a crisis, because we have to decide what we are going to do about that very act of God becoming one of us, among us, with us, and loving us. And that's something we all have to do on this Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Choose well. I'm Stan Houston. Merry Christmas. Best of blessings. Happy Hanukkah. Celebrate that God truly is with us, for us, among us, and loves us. That is a great, great gift. Look forward to talking to you again sometime, probably in the new year. We'll take a little time off to celebrate the family and the child that we have in terms of our own situation. And you do the same. Find a time to rest, relax, and to worship, and get ready for the year before us. Interesting ideas, for sure. Best in blessings. Bye for now.